Put on your beekeeper suit
Not the beast!
and get ready for an epic heist.
It's a heist, guys.
I love heist.
Because Netflix's Kaleidoscope will have you guessing what the hell is going on no matter what episode you start with. Yes, this show can be watched in any order, and in this video I'll be going over the best order to watch it, some of the biggest unanswered questions, and hidden clues you might have missed. I've left timestamps below so you can see all the topics I'll be covering, and while you're at it, why not drop a like and subscribe? I may not always cover what you're watching, but when I do...
It's pretty awesome.
It is pretty awesome.
When I first found out this show could be watched in any order, I dismissed it merely as a gimmick, but as I started watching the series, I actually kind of enjoyed it. Watching it non-chronologically had me trying to fill in the blanks as to what happened and why characters did the things they did. First, I'm going to lay out the chronological order, which you can see here. I should also note, and correct me if I'm wrong, episode White, the heist, is programmed to be the last episode in every instance. So the chronological order is how most traditional narratives are told, but I actually encourage you not to watch it this way. That's because, using this order, the episode with the most reveals and biggest emotional impact would happen in episode 6 instead of the final episode, where it's better suited, hence why Netflix programmed that last. Next, for those of you who are curious, is the random order I was given. Here you can see I started with the Prison Break episode and ended with the heist. This order was enjoyable, but I would make some changes for an optimal viewing experience, which leads me to this. Here's the order I wish I watched it in, starting with Yellow 6 weeks before the heist, simply because it's a great intro to all our characters, and it's just a fun episode all around. This is the one where our ragtag group assembles, so we get a brief introduction to all the characters, and it even has its own Diamond Heist segment. Now episodes 2 to 4 really is a toss-up between Orange, Green, and Blue. You can watch those in any order, but I like Blue being right at the midway point of the season because that's the point leading right up to the heist. Think of it as a mid-season cliffhanger. We then go with Red to see the morning after the heist, wondering how the hell everything went wrong. Then Pink 6 months after, which gives us some more clues, and then Violet 24 years before the heist. This may be contentious for those of you who have seen the show, but the huge flashback episode here accomplishes two things. One, it shows us the moment that sparked this whole heist in the first place, the death of Leo's wife and his subsequent arrest, but also establishes the core emotional thread of the show, which is the relationship between Leo and his daughter Hannah. Having this right before the finale adds greater pull to arguably the most emotional scene in the entire season, where Hannah reveals to her father what she did with the money and why she did it. But let me know what orders you guys watched it in and if there's anything intriguing you got out of it. Before we get into the heist itself, it's important to understand why it's happening in the first place. As Leo will later tell his daughter, the heist was never about the money. 24 years ago in 1998, two con men by the names of Ray Vernon and Graham Davies devised a plot to steal hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of diamonds from a Christmas charity auction. Ray had tried going legitimate, but knowing his auto shop business was in desperate need of funds and Graham pleading for his help, he takes on this final heist. Unfortunately for Ray, the heist goes terribly wrong, with his wife Lily dying in a fire, his best friend choosing not to save her, and Ray getting arrested. So the big vault heist was never really about getting away with $7 billion. It was to exact revenge on the man who took everything away from Leo. It was deeply personal. Flash forward 24 years, and Ray, who now goes by the alias Leo Pap, has devised the ultimate plan to get back at Graham. Graham has also changed his identity to that of Roger Salas and has built a company protecting people's assets with state-of-the-art vaults. Kind of ironic that a guy who spent much of his life stealing money now protects it. In episode Blue, 5 days before the heist, Leo maps out the 7 steps needed to break into the vault and steal the $7 million worth of bonds. Step 1 is making their way into the loading dock of the SLS building, SLS being Salas Logistics Services, the company owned by Roger. This entails having a fake SLS truck, one which RJ creates a copy of, and the security bypass to get in. Getting the bypass was accomplished by cloning the radio frequency transmitters from an actual SLS truck, which was then copied for the heist. Steps 2 and 3 are getting from the loading dock to the vault itself, which unfortunately is manned by several guards. They get by this by using some rather ingenious methods, like hooking up a bunch of electrical batteries to the metal door, a plant that sets off poison gas, and the tried and true tranquilizer dart. Not included in these steps but worth mentioning are the security feeds themselves. We see Roger check in on the live feeds, which look completely normal during the heist. That's because a few days prior, Leo broke into his home and set up a connection which looped a fake live feed. Step 4 is all about gaining access to the vault hallway, which is easily bypassed with a keycard. In episode 5, Leo explains that they already have access to one of these keycards, but we never really figure out how. Regardless, this merely opens the door to one of the vault's most elaborate security features, the gate detector. A multi-matrix gate recognition unit which recognizes your walk, and anyone that isn't supposed to be there will be picked up. Bypassing this is step 5, and they come up with a rather ingenious method of getting past this. By filling the hall with hundreds of bees, it jams the recognition unit's feed, allowing Leo, in a sort of bee camouflage suit, to access the terminal at the end of the hall and shut it down. They also have the queen bee in this little container, which they'll use to corral the bees once they're no longer of use. Step 6 is by far the most difficult to overcome. They have to access the vault itself and deal with its temperature sensors. Accessing the vault requires 3 things: something you are, something you have, and something you know. Only one man has all 3 of these things, Roger Salas, and leading up to the heist, the team found ingenious ways to get around this. First, something you are. This refers to Roger's facial recognition. By spiking Roger's contact lens solution, it caused an eye irritation which Hannah used to call a fake doctor, Stan, who used this device to completely scan his face, allowing them to 3D print a replica. This something you have refers to this small metallic ball which Leo has carved a replica of. We know throughout the series this guy really likes to carve. And finally, something you know. This is a password that will disable the temperature sensors but is only known by Roger, and to make things more difficult, it changes every day. Originally, Leo paid the manufacturer of the vault $50,000 some 7 years ago to secretly install a back door to bypass this, but this was discovered by Roger and is no longer of use. This is where Judy, the hurricane, and chemistry come into play. It just so happens that the vault conveniently sits atop an abandoned water tunnel, a water tunnel that's right below the Wall Street subway station. Flooding caused by the hurricane would allow them to set off a bomb, allowing water to flow from the subway station to the water tunnel, setting off a number of strategically placed cesium charges. Cesium, when mixed with water, creates an explosion which would allow water to rain down and disrupt the temperature sensors. It's briefly mentioned in the series, but Judy is the daughter of a famed chemistry professor, so that's likely where she picked up a lot of her chemistry know-how. The final step is cracking the safes themselves. This was to be done entirely by Bob, an expert safecracker, but since he got his hand shot a few weeks prior, he'll need the help of Stan. If all goes according to plan, the bonds will be moved onto the truck, which has been changed to be look like one run by Con Edison. That's a brilliant move considering Con Edison is a power company that would absolutely have trucks out in the wake of a hurricane where power would be out. Unfortunately, it's later revealed that the bonds have been switched, and in the show's biggest reveal, it was Hannah who did it. In the final episode, White, Hannah reveals to her father that she was the one to switch the bonds, not for the money, but to save all of their lives. She knew the triplets, 3 powerful bankers who own these bonds, would have them hunted down and killed should the heist be successful. So, in order to save their lives and that of her unborn child, she proposed a plan to the triplets. The day after the bonds were moved into Roger's vault, the triplets tasked Roger with converting them to a quote, cleaner asset. You see, all these bonds were created before 1982, when bonds were not required to be registered, making them untraceable and ripe for criminal activity. With the triplets facing increased scrutiny by global governments and monetary institutions, they want to rid themselves of these potential damaging bonds. This is where Hannah comes in and offers an ingenious solution. Let her steal the bonds, the insurance will pay the triplets back, and then the actual bonds, which were FedEx to the Caymans, can be picked up by the triplets under complete secrecy. In essence, the triplets are making an easy $7 billion in clean money and getting their bonds back safely tucked away in the Caribbean. In exchange, Hannah doesn't have to worry about her or her father ever being hunted down. Now let's talk a bit about what was in Roger's safe. Remember that Leo's motivation for the heist wasn't really the money, rather revenge. He wanted Roger to pay for what he did and to know it was him who did it. And what better way than by stashing flashing Rappaccini's orchid, the diamond stolen from the charity auction 24 years ago. We saw Leo stash it in this white pouch in the Violet episode and retrieve it from a safe in the Heist episode in that same pouch. He kept a hold of it for this very moment. In the Pink episode, 6 months after the heist, we see FBI agent Nazan Abassi collapse shortly after shaking hands with a man on the streets of New York City. The show never explicitly gives us an answer on who was behind this, but considering Nazan was told by her superior to stop looking into the heist, yet continued to do so, it's highly likely this was the work of the triplets. There's even a line in the Blue episode where Roger describes what could happen if you cross the triplets.
You're walking down the street, someone brushes your arm, 3 blocks later you drop dead of a heart attack.
Last but not least, we can't forget our boy Leo, where in the Pink episode it's heavily implied he's killed. The fact he's seen walking with some luggage, perhaps to finally visit his daughter and grandson, makes it even more tragic. But who shot him? Well, judging by the shirt worn by the assailant, it's Roger's son Brad, who wore the exact same shirt in the White episode. Brad's son doing this also highlights the show's theme of revenge. Brad would want to get back at the man who put his father in jail, and who also stifled his own plans to work at his dad's company. Remember in the White episode, Brad pleaded to his father to get him a job at SLS rather than go to college. Now, I really enjoyed Kaleidoscope. I thought it was a lot of fun, but what did you think? Is this heist worth it, or is it a pass? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, everyone. Be sure to like and subscribe, and for more bad takes, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember...
Not the beast! Ah!